Hello and welcome everyone, I'm Madals and today I have got a best of one. It's from the ladder and it is a Zerg versus a Protoss. They are both Grandmaster level players, so this means the quality should be theoretically the top 200, but whether that'll be the case we'll have to wait and see. The two players though, let's get into this and introduce them. Spawning in the top left position, we've got the red Zerg player, it's IdrA. And he is going to be playing up against the blue Protoss. In the bottom right, SaroVati, or Vati. I'm not quite sure how you say that, but I'm going to call him Saro, because Saro is a lot easier to say. And he's from Complexity, so I think he might be on the... Yeah, well, it's Complexity Gaming's tag, so he is on Complexity. Vati? I'm not quite sure how you meant to say that, but Saro definitely works, so that's what I'm going to run with. Now, being a ZvP on Belshir, what sort of things can we expect? Well, a pylon up on the high ground for a Protoss really is the standard opening here, and that is because this area into your natural base is so wide. It's ridiculous. Like, honestly, if this got onto Reddit or something, this kind of area is so wide that there'd be so many yo mama jokes on there, it would be ridiculous. It's just crazy. You can't effectively wall it off safely. So going for a gateway expand or alternatively a forge up in the high ground can be possible options, but generally a gateway into a nexus is a really nice build to go on this map, and I think it's really solid. IdrA, spawning pool first, because anyone who saw my games a couple of days ago from TLO versus... I've got to think now. TLO versus someone in a best of three. Tails. Was it Tails? It may have been Tails. If it was, but anyway, cannon rushes are awfully good fun if you're a Protoss player, and that is why you should always go spawning pool first as a Zerg. And if you haven't watched those games from TLO versus whoever it was a Protoss player, then you should check those out because they were quite amusing. Now, anyway, as we've got here, gas down, Subnexco is going to start up, all very standard openings here. IdrA just getting his hatchery down. Now, because of this gateway expansion, he doesn't need to rush out his third super fast. The Overlord's going to come in, see there's no wall off, which is to be expected. He's going to see there's no Nexus, which is also to be expected. And then he's probably going to just come and position his Overlord kind of in this sort of area, just to make sure that he's got a good little bit of vision of when the Nexus is thrown down, if the Nexus is thrown down, so he can prepare himself in a good position for it and really adapt his build to fit it. So, first thing we're noticing in deviation from the standard Zerg play against Protoss, if it was a Forge Fast Expand, is an Extract coming down. Probably just going to get out Zergling speed, most likely. Then normally you'll see the drones pulled out. You can potentially see them kept in there depending on when the Roach-a-Ron wants to go down. If the Zerg player wants to commit to getting some Roaches out, maybe going into Roach Hydra. But for the moment, we can just see that the Mothership Core popping out. We've got Warp Gate Tech already started, so things looking all fairly normal, and I'm pretty certain that we'll be seeing a quick Nexus. That pile on the low ground is a good giveaway. Probe getting pulled now at just under 300 minerals, so everything going the way it should. Zealots are going to start wandering across with the Mothership Core there. Two Zealots and a Mothership Core can be a bit of a pain. They can just do a little bit of harassment, try and stop a third base, potentially pick off a Queen at the natural, and generally be a bit of a thorn in the side of a Zerg player. Now, with the Overlord coming in, this is just IdrA scouting out, saying, okay, Nexus coming down, I'm not up against some kind of one-base play. That's the important thing. Does know that there's the Zealot there, but already has 4 Zerglings out, got 2 more on the way. 6 Zerglings plus a Queen shouldn't matter too much. The Queen does need to try and focus the Mothership Core down, though, because if the Queen dies and the Mothership Core doesn't, it has pretty much free reign across everything. And now with 2 Zealots here, it's going to be a bit more tough to hold this off, and IdrA does need to be very cautious not to lose that Queen there, but this is only really light harassment. It's nothing that's meant to kill you, but even if it doesn't kill any drones, there's 6 more Zerglings already in production. That's causing a lot. A nice little time warp there on one of the Queens means the Zealots can get right up close and personal with it and will take it down. That's going to hurt IdrA's production, which is always problematic. The Mothership Core still aiding. These 2 Zealots are up and running still, only losing a little bit of health between them. More Zerglings are coming down to try and deal with this. The Queen is going to try and get focused here. Will it be able to snipe off the Mothership Core in time? Doesn't look like it is going to be able to. And with both Queens down, IdrA now is just on basic lava production, which is not what he'd want. He needs those Queens out in order to pump out a good number of units. Zerglings are heading across the map, going for a little bit of counter-aggression. Additional gateways were going to go down, but then a misclick there actually meant that they got out of position, so got cancelled, which is a bit of a pain. Going to delay it. There is still this wall off here, but there is no forge down, so no cannon is available. But with the sentries, Force Field should be able to hold these Zerglings off for a good amount of time, especially if they hit fairly soon. And because that IdrA, he can try and punch through, but Force Fields will hit in time. It's pretty easy Force Fields to make there. Behind this, IdrA just taking his third hatchery, so he is going to be expanding, trying to stay a base up. Economically, he's not in the best spot because he lost that queen. Yes, two of them are now back up, but he missed a couple of injects because of it, and that's just always awkward. It's a couple of lava, which won't ever have existed. Therefore, the drone count and the worker count just in whole is exactly equal, which is not what you really want. But these 3 additional gateways mean that some delayed 4-gate pressure can come in. The mothership core still down, remember, still just chilling out outside the natural base, and 4-gate pressure can actually be a right pain to deal with, especially when you're only on Zerglings, and that's why we see the Roach Warren now coming down here for IdrA. He's got a good scout out, he's seen these additional gates, knows what could be coming, and so wants to get those Roaches out just in case it does start coming across the map. But as we see, the mothership core is getting taken out. Overall spread is pretty good. There's no proxy pylon down on the map either, so this robotics facility is to be expected, and with a good amount of sentry production, of course, you're going to be always wondering, is it going to be some kind of immortal sentry push, which is really powerful, and especially into this third base, because you can get into a nice spot here and you get some good force fields off. Also, another nice way to push into is through this little ramped area. Can also be a right pain for Zerg players to deal with. But the sentries are now just moving forward. A good scout out by IdrA, though, just seeing how many sentries there are there. Obviously, they are starting to bank up energy. Saw the probe getting pulled too. And the reason that's critical is because once you know the probe's coming out, you know a proxy pylon is going to be placed and pressure is going to be applied. But the robotics facility still isn't down yet, so there's no immortal or anything. This is just 4 gates worth of pressure, plus a mothership core, which does critically have enough energy to get a photon overcharge off. And sonar phone overcharge, a time warp, and also a mass recall down. So this means that this is not a big commitment. These sentries don't want to go down. You want to keep those up. They're very gas heavy, and a lot has been invested in them. So Saro needs to make sure that he just gets back, deals any damage he can, forces units out, lowering the drone count further, and then if it all doesn't go to plan, he can mass recall out. He's nearly got enough energy for a time warp and a mass recall, so that's obviously very beneficial for him. He's behind this, just teching straight up into Colossi, but here comes down the first force field. Good force field placement means units aren't easily able to come through here. This is just picking off a couple of units at a time. More force fields are going down. A couple of sentries are getting taken out here. More force fields going. Mothership core moving in. Mass recall is going to go down. And there we go. But getting straight back out of there. IdrA's still losing far more resources. And in the worker count, he's behind by 9 workers already, which is not a great spot. So this harassment style out of Saro is doing a really nice job of just forcing IdrA to commit a lot to units while not being able to drone up, hurting his late game economy. He's not teching really behind this either, and that's really pigeonholing IdrA into what he's able to do, and that is that he's got to go and try and put on some counter pressure in the near future, because otherwise, as this Colossi count climbs, it's going to be so difficult for just Roachling to do anything substantial. So +1 is coming down. There's no upgrades yet for the Protoss player, hasn't started a forge even so far, so not upgrading. That means timing pushes can be quite likely with just 1 or 2 Colossi. Could also just try and expand out from this, pushing back the Overlords, which is always nice. IdrA, though, he's still got a good number of units out. His drone count only now just equal with the probe count. He does have his third base up, though, so his income will be slightly higher just due to that. But with more Colossi on their way, with extended thermal lancer quarter done, 2-3 Colossus can do a lot of damage to Roachling, and that's going to be really problematic for IdrA if he wants to try and really punch through this. He needs to work out what he's going to have as mid-game strategy, and with a +1 missile attack, Hydras are quite likely. He can also just go straight up for a Corruptors as well. Roach Hydra Corruptors, a nice composition. Can also get some Mutalisks out as well to just really do a little bit of harassment, a bit of pain, and it's getting a lot more common. This 4th hatchery, no way is going to be able to survive, will be forced to cancel, and that's another problem for IdrA because he's had an Overlord picked off down to the 3rd, so he doesn't actually know if the Protoss player is going to be able, or is going for that 3rd expansion. But the Colossus just pushing up. The 2nd Colossus is making its way across the map. Like, I thought that was a Colossus for a second. I was about to panic as it was about to get picked up. But IdrA momentarily supply block, got a lot more Overlords on their way, and he needs to pump out a lot of units here, and he's got to really find a way to deal with these 2 Colossi because they can deal so much damage so quickly. 1-1 upgrades aren't quite done yet for IdrA, and that would really help. A double time warp is just going to allow these Stalkers to pick off a couple of units on the retreat, and this is what IdrA really didn't want. He wants to get that critical mass of units where he can go for a big flood and a nice round to try and engage effectively. But for the time being, he is just being forced to turtle up, try and get in a nice defensive spot, waiting for that Spire to come down. +1 missile attack is now done, so the upgrade advantage is there for IdrA. But as we see, there was just so many units here. The Mothership core He's really low on energy, so that's not going to be too much more help. But force fields are starting to be utilised. One sentry on the wrong side of the force field, which is always dangerous for the sentry units coming from the back. IdrA trying to get ready to go for the surround. Is he going to be able to make it work? Will he be able to hold up this third base? Well, here he goes forward. The Zergling's getting a nice little attack angle, but the Roach is being zoned out by those force fields ever so effectively. The Colossi are staying up, and that is the critical part of this army, allowing Saro to just deal so much damage. And now with the Roaches coming in, there's only a few of them remaining. 10 more are reinforcing. IdrA loses his third hatchery, but does have a macro hatchery at his natural. This Protoss force, though, not taking that much damage. Great force field control by the Clarity Gaming player. And with more reinforcements on their way forward, IdrA has just got to try and buy himself some more time. Remember, behind this, the Protoss player has not expanded to a third. So this is a 2-base all-in, and IdrA, realizing he's not going to be able to hold, leaves the game. So, what do we see there? IdrA, he was forced. I've got to give credit to Clarity Gaming's SaroVati, because he did so much damage with that harassment early on. It wasn't like it was game-breaking damage, but he just forced IdrA to make so many units early, picked off the queen, hurt the production, and kept IdrA's economy low. He just played a really harassment-heavy style while teching up behind. It was just really solid. So I hope you all enjoyed that game. If you did, make sure you like the video, leave a cool comment, and of course subscribe. And I will get a new game up tomorrow, so make sure you tune in then. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.